I thought divorce would set me free. I thought it was the answer to all the things I'd been feeling trapped by for years. But now, looking back, I feel more stuck than ever. My name's Heather. I'm 32 years old, and let me tell you, I had it all figured out, or at least I thought I did. I was a wife, a mother of two, living what I thought was the dream with my husband Matt. He was a good man, a logical man. He never gave me any reason to doubt him. But I don't know. I just felt bored. Maybe that's the wrong word, but it's the only way I can describe it. Bored with being a wife, bored with being a mom, bored with everything. I felt like I was missing out on something. I'd catch myself scrolling through social media, seeing all these women out at bars, at parties, having fun, doing whatever they wanted, without anyone holding them back. I was jealous, I won't lie. It didn't help that my best friend Jessie would call me up every weekend, talking about how amazing her life was now that she was single and living her best life. She'd be out every Friday and Saturday night, getting drunk with her friends, not caring about responsibilities. No kids, no husband to answer to. She'd send me pictures of her out with random guys, and I'd just sit there, feeling like I was missing something huge. Matt never stopped me from hanging out with my friends. But he did set boundaries. He made it clear he didn't like the way Jessie and her crowd lived their lives. I get it, I really do. They were wild, irresponsible, and honestly, I'd been part of that life before Matt and I settled down. I had fun back then, but now it felt like a distant memory. It wasn't just about having fun anymore. It was about freedom. I didn't realize it at the time, but that's what I was craving. I didn't want to be this mom figure, this wife who always had to stay home, always had to take care of everything. I wanted to feel alive again. I wanted to feel free. So I started listening to my single friends. They said things like, "You deserve to have fun again, and Matt's not gonna change. He's too stuck in his ways." And they were right about one thing. He had his boundaries. And I hated them. I hated that he didn't just let me go out whenever I wanted. But it wasn't like he was controlling. He was just logical. He didn't want me getting drunk and running around with a bunch of people who couldn't care less about anyone's well-being. But I didn't care about that anymore. I wanted to go out. I wanted to be wild. So one Friday, I packed up, put on a new dress, and told Matt I was going out with the girls. He raised an eyebrow, which should have been a red flag, but at that moment I didn't care. I was ready to live. He didn't argue, just told me to be safe. That night, I felt like I had regained control of my life. I was dancing with friends, laughing with strangers, and just letting everything go. It felt amazing. The more I did it, the more I wanted it. I wasn't thinking about Matt or the kids. I wasn't thinking about anything but me. And that was the problem, wasn't it? After a few weeks of this, Matt started getting upset. It wasn't like he was throwing a fit, but I could tell he wasn't happy. He'd ask about my nights out, and I'd just brush it off like it was no big deal. I was still being a good mom, still taking care of the house, right? I didn't see the problem. But Matt did, and that's when things started to get tense. I remember one night he sat me down and told me, "Heather, I get that you want to go out and have fun, but this isn't just about you anymore. You're a mother, a wife, and we have responsibilities." I didn't want to hear it. I just snapped. I didn't sign up to be a mom and wife forever. I'm still a person, Matt. I want to feel like I'm not just stuck here in this house cooking and cleaning every damn day. I saw the hurt in his eyes. But I didn't care. I was angry. Angry that he didn't understand. Angry that he wasn't the kind of guy who just let me do whatever I wanted. I wanted him to just let me live. And the fact that he wasn't okay with it pissed me off. I hated the way he made me feel like I was being selfish for wanting to have fun. Looking back, I know I was wrong. I know I shouldn't have lashed out like that, but at the time, it felt like everything was closing in on me. The more he set boundaries, the more I rebelled. I didn't want to be confined to the role he had put me in. But you know what? Deep down, I didn't have the guts to face what I was really doing. I didn't want to face the fact that I was being reckless and selfish. I just kept going out, kept ignoring the problems building between us. And all the while, Jessie was there, cheering me on, telling me I was doing the right thing. "Matt's just too controlling," she'd say. "You deserve to be happy." I kept listening to her, not even realizing that I was digging my own grave. It wasn't just about fun anymore. It wasn't just about freedom. It was about avoiding the responsibility that came with being in a committed relationship, with being a mother. But I didn't see it. Not yet. So here I am now, sitting in the mess I created. I thought getting out and having fun would set me free. But now I'm stuck in a web of regrets, wondering if I've already lost Matt for good. If you're thinking this story is about how I finally got my act together, you're wrong. Not yet, at least. I knew things were getting bad when Matt stopped asking me where I was going. At first, he'd ask questions like, "Who's driving?" or "What time do you think you'll be back?" They weren't controlling questions, just normal stuff a husband would ask. But slowly, he stopped. No "be safe," no "call me if you need me," nothing. I convinced myself that it meant he didn't care. And if he didn't care, why should I? One Friday night, I was getting ready in the bathroom, putting on my makeup like I was going on a first date. I had this tight red dress I hadn't worn since before we had kids, and tonight, I was feeling bold. Jessie texted me, "Girl, you better show out tonight. No mom vibes allowed." I laughed, thinking, yeah, no mom vibes tonight. Matt walked past the bathroom, glanced at me, then stopped. For a second, I thought he was going to say something, maybe tell me I looked nice, or ask where I was headed. But he just stood there, leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed, watching me. "You're really doing this again?" he said, his voice calm but sharp, like a needle pricking skin. I looked at him through the mirror. "Doing what, Matt?" I snapped back, blending foundation a little too hard into my cheek. He shook his head. "Nothing. Go have your fun, Heather. I'm done talking about it." That should have been my cue to stop, but instead, I laughed under my breath. "Yeah. Well, maybe you should come with me one of these nights." "Oh, wait, I forgot. You hate fun." I said it with a grin, but it wasn't playful. It was a jab. A low one. His eyes narrowed. "Nah, I just know fun doesn't come with a hangover and bad decisions." He turned and walked off before I could respond. Bad decisions. That stuck with me for some reason. I stood there, mascara wand in my hand, staring at myself in the mirror. I told myself he was just being dramatic, but a part of me knew he was right. Jessie and her friends weren't just having fun. They were wild, talking to random guys, flirting with bartenders, and doing stuff I knew I'd never want Matt to see me doing. But I wasn't them. I wasn't cheating, I wasn't doing anything that bad. At least that's what I told myself. I shook it off, grabbed my clutch, and left without another word to him. That night, we went to this rooftop bar downtown. Loud music, flashing lights, and everyone dressed to impress. Jessie was already 2 drinks in by the time I got there. "Heather, there she is," she yelled, pulling me in for a hug like I'd just come back from war. "Girl, you look good," she said, eyeing me up and down. "Matt's gonna be pissed tonight." She said it like it was a badge of honor. "Nah, he doesn't care anymore," I lied. "Good, that means you're finally living." That sentence hit me differently. Finally living? Like I hadn't been living all this time? I let Jessie's words sink in as she handed me a drink. And for a while, I let myself believe it. I danced, I laughed, I let loose. It felt good. I was free, wasn't I? Until it didn't feel so good anymore. I got home at 2:34 a.m. I remember because I stared at the time on my phone like it was judging me. I walked in quiet, heels in hand, trying not to wake anybody. The house was dark except for the glow from the living room TV. I peeked in and saw Matt asleep on the couch, arms crossed, like he'd been waiting for me but gave up. Normally I'd sneak past him, but for some reason, I just stood there watching him sleep. It was strange seeing him like that, face calm, no frustration, no arguments. Just Matt. I used to love watching him sleep back when we first got married, but now it just made me feel something I didn't want to feel. I hated it. I hated that I felt like the bad guy. So I did what I always do. I ignored it. I went upstairs, changed into pajamas, and climbed into bed like everything was fine. The shift in Matt was subtle at first. He wasn't cold or distant. He was just quiet. No more long conversations at night, no more little moments of affection. He still kissed me before he left for work, still played with the kids, still handled his responsibilities. But something was missing. It wasn't until one night at dinner that I noticed it for real. I was scrolling through my phone at the table. Yeah, I know, rude. and I came across a funny meme about husbands that said something like, "Husbands will act like they're dying if you ask them to watch the kids for an hour." I laughed and blurted it out loud. "Oh my God, this is so you, Matt." He didn't laugh. He looked at me, and with the calmest, most serious voice I've ever heard, he said, "Yeah, real funny, Heather." Then he went back to eating like I wasn't even there. Jesse would have called that sassy, but it wasn't sassy, it was something else. It felt like disappointment. After dinner, I put the kids to bed while Matt cleaned up the kitchen. When I came back down, he was wiping the counter and I was feeling bold, so I asked, "You good?" He kept wiping the counter like he didn't hear me. I rolled my eyes and tried again. "Matt, seriously, you good?" He dropped the rag on the counter, leaned on it with both hands, and let out a breath like he'd been holding it in all night. "Heather, do you even know what you're doing?" he said quietly. I frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" He shook his head like he was talking to a child who just didn't get it. "It means you're playing a game with people who aren't gonna be there when it's over. Jessie and her friends? They'll move on to the next party. Meanwhile, you'll be the one sitting here, looking around, wondering what you lost." I hated how calm he was. I wanted him to yell. I wanted him to be mad because at least then I could call him controlling. But no, he was calm. Too calm. "Oh, please," I shot back. "You think you're so wise, huh? Mr. Logic, Mr. Perfect. Must be nice to sit on your throne of wisdom while I do all the cooking, cleaning, and raising these kids." I folded my arms like I'd won, but he didn't take the bait. He just stared at me like I wasn't making any sense. "You're not trapped, Heather," he said, his voice flat but firm. "You're choosing to be." Then he turned and walked away. That line haunted me all night. You're not trapped. You're choosing to be. I didn't feel trapped before, but now I did. Trapped in my own decisions, trapped in my need to feel free. Jessie wasn't trapped. She was free, right? She had no husband, no kids, no rules. But then I remembered the last time I crashed at her apartment after a wild night out. It was a mess. Clothes everywhere, dishes in the sink, air mattress in the living room because she couldn't afford a real couch. Jessie was free, but her life didn't look as free as it did on Instagram. I didn't want to admit it, but maybe Matt was right. Maybe I was playing a game I couldn't win. But I wasn't ready to admit it. Not yet. The tension between Matt and me was so thick, you could feel it in the air. We weren't yelling or slamming doors, but everything felt off. The way he barely looked at me, how he only spoke when necessary, and the silence that filled the house every night after the kids went to bed. It was loud, even if no one was saying a word. I knew he was upset, but I didn't care enough to fix it. If he wanted to be miserable, that was on him. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was still taking care of the kids, keeping the house together, mostly, and I deserved to have some fun too. I'd already spent too many years being the good wife. That next weekend, Jessie texted me, "You outside tonight or what?" We hit in the rooftop again. I didn't even think twice. I typed back, "Bet. I'll be ready by 9. When I was getting ready that night, I decided I was going to look better than the last time. Tight black dress, new heels I bought for a special occasion, even though this wasn't one, and my hair was slicked back into a bun so clean you'd think I had a stylist. I even sprayed that vanilla-scented perfume Matt liked, but not for him. He was in the living room with his headphones on, watching some boring documentary like he always does. I walked past him, heels clicking on the hardwood floor, slow and deliberate. He didn't say a word, didn't even glance up. I felt a little sting from that. But I kept walking, head high like I had something to prove. When I got to the club, the energy was electric. Loud music, crowded dance floors, and Jessie acting like she owned the place. We had drinks in our hands within minutes, laughing like high schoolers who just snuck out past curfew. And then came the attention. You know the kind. A few stares from across the room, a guy accidentally bumping into you, another one offering to buy a drink. It felt good. I won't lie. When you've been a wife and mom for years, and suddenly people are looking at you like you're desirable again, it messes with your head. Makes you feel like you're still that girl. One guy, Travis, stood out. He wasn't flashy, didn't have a loud crew of guys with him. He was just smooth. Clean cut, nice smile, said all the right things without trying too hard. We talked for a while, nothing crazy, just small talk. He wasn't pushy, and I wasn't interested in anything more than conversation, or at least that's what I told myself. When Jessie saw us talking, she gave me that mischievous grin. "Ooh, he's cute," she whispered, nudging me with her elbow. "Matt who?" She laughed. I rolled my eyes, but I didn't walk away. The next morning, I woke up to a headache that felt like a marching band in my skull. My phone was face down on the nightstand, and when I flipped it over, I saw the texts. "Travis, you make it home safe? Had fun talking to you. You're different from the girls I usually meet. Hit me up if you want to get out sometime." I sat there for a second, staring at the screen. It wasn't like I'd done anything wrong, right? I didn't cheat. It was just talking. I could have deleted the messages and gone about my day, but instead I responded. "Me? Yeah, made it home safe. Last night was fun, for sure." His reply came back fast. "Good. I meant what I said. You're different." I smiled at that. I don't know why. For the next few days it became a little habit. Travis would text, I'd respond. Nothing wild, nothing crazy, but it felt exciting. Something new. Something that wasn't dishes, laundry, or grocery store runs. I'd glance at my phone when Matt was in the kitchen, and I'd type quick replies when he wasn't looking. I told myself it was harmless. I told myself I'd stop, but I didn't. It wasn't until one night that everything blew up. I was on the couch, scrolling through my phone, kids already in bed, and Matt was upstairs finishing a work project. I was texting Travis about some random nonsense, laughing to myself at one of his jokes. Then I heard it. Footsteps. I looked up just as Matt walked down the stairs, phone in his hand. His face wasn't angry, it was blank. Calm, just like before. He stood at the bottom of the stairs, staring at me. "You forgot to log out of your messages app on the iPad," he said, holding up the iPad like a piece of evidence in court. I froze. My heart did that weird thing where it speeds up, but you try to act normal like you weren't just caught in 4K. "Oh, okay?" And I played it off, pretending like I didn't know what he was talking about. His jaw tightened just a bit, but he stayed calm. "Travis, you know him, right?" He tapped on the screen a few times. "You seemed real friendly with him." My face got hot. "Are you serious right now? You're snooping through my messages like a teenager?" I barked back, throwing it all on him. Classic deflection. "I didn't have to snoop, Heather," he said, stepping closer. "You left it right there. Texts popping up one after the other. I didn't have to go looking." He tilted his head, eyes locked on me. But I did read them. All of them. My stomach dropped. "You're different from the girls I usually meet. Real poetic," he said, his voice laced with sarcasm. "So what part of this is just fun again? Please, help me understand." I stood up, arms crossed, trying to stay in control. "Matt, it's not that serious. He's just some guy I met at the club. We were talking, that's it. You're acting like I cheated or something." "Talking?" He repeated it like it was a foreign word. He glanced down at the iPad, scrolling, then read it aloud. "You're cute, too bad I'm married." He read slowly, eyes lifting to meet mine. "That's just talking, huh?" Now I was defensive. "Okay, so what? I didn't do anything, Matt. I didn't touch him, I didn't kiss him, nothing happened. Stop being so dramatic." "Yeah, you just entertained it," he shot back, eyes narrowing. "You don't see the problem there, huh?" "No, I don't." I threw my hands up. "Maybe if you didn't act so boring all the time, I wouldn't have to go out just to feel alive." That hit him. Hard. I saw it in his face. He nodded slowly, lips pressed into a thin line like he was holding something in. He looked me up and down like he was seeing me for the first time. "All right," he said, so calm it made me nervous. "All right, Heather." He turned and walked away, just like that. "Where are you going?" I asked, following him like I suddenly cared. He didn't turn around. To be boring somewhere else. He grabbed his keys, jacket, and phone. No shouting, no threats, just quiet, controlled movements that felt heavier than any fight we'd ever had. "Really? This is what you're doing now?" I said, arms still crossed, trying to act like I was the victim. "You're just gonna walk out?" He stopped at the door, looked back at me with that same disappointed stare. "Nah, I'm not walking out. I'm just letting you be free, like you wanted." Then he walked out and shut the door behind him. I stood there for a long time, staring at that door. I told myself, he'll come back. He always comes back. But this time I wasn't so sure. Days passed and Matt didn't come home. No texts, no calls, Nothing. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured he was trying to make a point, a cool-off phase like we'd done before. He'd come home, we'd have one of those awkward, silent dinners, and then slowly, things would go back to normal. But this time was different. By the end of the week, I started to feel it. No missed calls from him. No "where are you?" texts. No "can you pick up the kids?" messages. Nothing. It was like I didn't exist. The house was too quiet. The silence felt heavier than all our arguments combined. Then on Friday, I heard the front door unlock. For a second, I felt relief. Finally. I played it cool, stayed on the couch, scrolling on my phone like I didn't care. But when I glanced up, I saw him. He wasn't alone. He walked in with a man in a navy blue suit carrying a leather briefcase. Not a friend, not family, a lawyer. My stomach twisted. "Matt, what is this?" I asked, trying to sound calm, but I could feel my chest tightening. "Just here to grab some things," he said simply, not even looking at me. His voice was cold, distant, like I was just another stranger in the house. The lawyer followed him in, standing by the door like he was security. I sat up on the couch, heart racing. "What do you mean, grab some things? You're being dramatic, Matt." He didn't answer. He walked straight to the closet in the hallway, grabbed a duffel bag, and started filling it with his clothes, chargers, and whatever else he needed. He moved with precision, like this wasn't his first time doing it. "Matt, come on," I scoffed, getting up now. "You're really packing a bag? Seriously?" After one argument, he zipped the bag slowly and slung it over his shoulder. Then he finally turned and looked at me. Really looked at me. And what I saw wasn't anger. It was peace. "I'm done, Heather," he said calmly, his voice steady. "No more arguments, no more cooling off. I'm done." I blinked, trying to process it. "You're done?" I laughed a little too loud. "Okay, yeah, sure. Go ahead. Run away like a coward. You'll be back like always." He didn't flinch, didn't argue. He just watched me with that quiet, unshakable calm that made me feel smaller than I'd ever felt. Then the lawyer spoke. "Mrs. Callahan, you'll be served the formal divorce papers on Monday. So that this is just a courtesy notice." My heart stopped. I froze, eyes locked on Matt. "Divorce?" I repeated, almost laughing. "You're talking like you've been planning this." I looked at him for a reaction, but he didn't give me one. Not even a blink. "Oh, so that's it, huh? You're just gonna file for divorce and walk away like it's that simple?" Matt tilted his head, looking at me like I was slow. "Yeah, Heather," he said with that sharp edge in his voice. "That's exactly what I'm gonna do. Please." I rolled my eyes. "You think you're slick, but I know how this works. We've been married for 10 years, Matt. I'm getting half. You think you're walking out of here with your big paycheck, and I'm getting nothing?" I laughed in his face, shaking my head. "Nah, it doesn't work like that, baby." He didn't argue. He didn't yell. He just walked to the kitchen, grabbed his keys off the counter, and turned back to face me one last time. "You really think I didn't plan for this?" he asked, one eyebrow raised. "You think I didn't see this coming?" "What are you talking about?" I shot back, squinting at him like he'd lost his mind. "I knew you'd slip up," he said, shaking his head like I was a kid who didn't understand simple math. "You think I didn't notice you changing, Heather? The nights out, the new clothes, the random nights when you needed fresh air? Come on, I've been watching you for months." He stepped closer now, eyes locked on mine. "The texts, the friends from the club, the late nights you thought I didn't know about. I was just waiting for you to give me a reason. And you did." I felt the blood drain from my face. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. "You played checkers," he said, pointing at me, "but I played chess." He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a folded paper, and tossed it on the table. It slid across the surface, stopping right in front of me. I hesitated, then grabbed it, flipping it open. My eyes scanned it quickly. Post-nuptial agreement. My heart stopped. "You signed it 4 years ago, remember?" Matt said, his voice cool, controlled, like a man who'd already won. "Back when I got that big raise at work and we talked about protecting our assets in case either of us made a bad financial move." He shrugged. "You were so busy spending the extra money you didn't even read it. You signed it like it was nothing." "No," I muttered, shaking my head. No. That's not what this is." My hands were shaking now, gripping the paper like I could tear it apart and make it go away. I scanned the page faster, searching for something, anything that said I still had a claim. But there it was, plain as day. In the event of infidelity, the offending party forfeits any claim to spousal support, assets, or marital funds. No, I whispered, blinking hard like I could unsee it. This isn't real. It's very real, Heather, Matt said, standing tall like a man with nothing to lose. I had it notarized and filed with the bank the same day. Everything in my name stays in my name. The house, the savings, my retirement, the stocks, all of it. Matt, I said, my voice cracking, desperation seeping in now. Come on, we have kids, Matt. We've been together for 10 years. You can't just... I took a shaky breath. You can't just do me like this. He tilted his head, eyes cold. I'm not doing anything to you, Heather. You did it to yourself. I didn't cheat, Matt. I didn't cheat, I snapped, voice getting louder. Texting someone isn't cheating. Talking to people isn't cheating. Infidelity isn't just physical, Heather. His voice was sharp, each word cutting deeper than the last. You violated the agreement. It's in black and white. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. I opened my mouth to argue, but the words caught in my throat. He was right. I signed it. Enjoy the freedom you wanted, he said, eyes narrowing as he grabbed the handle of his duffel bag. You're free now, just like you wanted. No boring husband, no rules, just you and whatever random guy you can text at 2 a.m. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something, but I stood there, frozen. Take care, Heather, he said, walking to the door. His lawyer followed. He didn't slam it. He didn't even look back. He just left. I stood there, holding that paper in my hand like it was on fire. My eyes stared at that clause again, reading it over and over, praying I'd missed something. Infidelity. Forfeits. Assets. I thought I was the one playing the game. I thought I had control. But Matt had been watching me the whole time. And he didn't just win. He checkmated me. I stood there in silence, clutching that paper like it could somehow change if I just held it long enough. My eyes stayed fixed on the words I'd already read 100 times in my head. Forfeits any claim to spousal support, assets, or marital funds. The weight of it finally hit me. Not just the words, the reality. No house, no savings, no support, no backup plan. I sank onto the couch, my hand still gripping the paper, my fingers wrinkling the edges. My chest felt hollow, like every ounce of air had been pulled from my lungs. I sat there for a long time, just numb. No tears, no rage, just empty. How did it come to this? I stared at the coffee table, tracing the outline of the cup stains, thinking about every little moment that led me here. I'm just going out with the girls lie. Every time I looked at my phone, smiling at a message from someone who didn't matter. Every time I rolled my eyes at Matt when he asked where I was going. I thought I was slick. I thought I was untouchable. But Matt was quiet. Quiet men are dangerous. He saw it coming before I did. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. He waited. Patient. Calculated. He knew I'd trip over my own ego eventually, and he set the trap perfectly. I played the short game, he played the long game. Now he's gone. No more babe, I'm home. No more dinners at the table, where I half listened while scrolling on my phone. No more weekend trips with him offering to drive because he knew I hated it. Gone. I glanced around the house, the same house I walk through every day, barely appreciating it. The kitchen island where we used to eat takeout. The couch where I'd sit and scroll through Instagram, acting like life was too boring for me. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like an empty shell. I thought back to all the times I convinced myself I was the victim. That he was the one who needed to step up. That he was the one holding me back. But now, looking back, I see it. He wasn't the problem. I was. I wanted more. I thought I deserved more. But more never came. All those random guys I texted, none of them would be there for me now. None of them would pack me a bag if I needed it. None of them would stay after an argument. They were just names on a screen. Distractions. People who made me feel wanted for 5 minutes before they moved on to the next woman doing the same thing I was doing. I played myself. I thought I had it all figured out, thought I had him wrapped around my finger. 10 years of marriage, and I thought I was untouchable. I thought love meant security, that no matter what, I'd always have a backup plan. But love doesn't guarantee you security. Love requires respect. And I lost that somewhere along the way. I sat back on the couch, my mind racing. How was I supposed to start over? I hadn't worked in years. I was too busy living life while he built his. I lived off his paychecks, bought what I wanted, and told myself I deserved it. But now, I don't have a paycheck. I don't have savings. I don't have him. Tears burned my eyes, but I bit them back. I didn't want to cry. Crying felt too easy. It felt like admitting defeat. But the reality was, I was defeated. Checkmate. He had it all figured out. He waited for me to self-destruct. And I did. I glanced back at my phone on the couch cushion next to me. The same phone I used to scroll through attention from strangers. For a second, I thought about texting him, telling him I was sorry, begging him to come back. Please, Matt. I didn't mean it. But I knew how that would go. He wouldn't answer. He wouldn't even read it. Because when a man like Matt makes up his mind, it's final. He didn't storm out. He didn't slam the door. He left with peace in his heart because he already won. And me? I'm sitting here, surrounded by everything I thought was mine but never really was. The house, the furniture, the life we built together. None of it belonged to me. It was his. I was just living in it. I leaned forward, hands in my hair, my heart pounding in my chest. What now? I'd have to move. There's no way I could keep this house. I couldn't afford rent, much less a mortgage. I'd have to get a job, but doing what? I hadn't worked since I was in my 20s. Nobody was going to hire a woman with former stay-at-home wife on her resume. I thought I was building a lifestyle, but really, I was just a tenant in his. The realization hit me like a brick wall. I wasn't getting half. I wasn't getting the house. I wasn't getting a dime. I was walking away with nothing but the clothes I bought on his dime and the phone in my hand. I laid back on the couch, staring up at the ceiling, counting every mistake I'd made. I replayed it in my mind, every stupid decision, every moment I ignored the little voice in my head telling me, "Don't do it, Heather. Don't push him too far." But I did it anyway. Ego. Pride. Stupidity. I scrolled through my messages, my thumb hovering over Matt's name. I knew calling him wouldn't change anything, but I still hovered over it like it might. What would I even say? I'm sorry? I didn't mean it? I was just bored? No. None of that would matter now. He gave me a chance. He gave me years of chances. I ignored every single one. I opened Instagram, scrolled past the pictures of girls I used to envy. The ones who looked like they had it all together, flashy clothes, free trips, living their best life. I used to want to be like them. I used to think I deserved what they had. But now, all I could see was my own reflection in the black mirror of my phone screen. No makeup, no filter. Just me. For the first time, I didn't like who I saw. The doorbell rang, breaking me out of my thoughts. I knew who it was before I even stood up. I walked slowly, heart pounding in my chest. I opened the door, and there he was. A guy in a tan vest with a clipboard. "Hi, Mrs. Callahan?" he asked, polite but direct. "Yeah," I muttered, already knowing what was coming. He handed me an envelope. "You've been served." I took it, nodded, and closed the door behind me. No words, no questions. I already knew what it was. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at that envelope like it was radioactive. I didn't open it right away. I didn't need to. The only thing worse than knowing you're about to lose everything is knowing you deserve it. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually I opened it. Pages and pages of legal terms I didn't understand, but one sentence stood out. Petitioner requests dissolution of marriage with no division of assets or support to respondent. I read it 3 times just to be sure. No division of assets, no money, no house, no support, just me. Alone. I folded it up, set it on the table, and stared out the window. My world used to feel so big, so full of possibility, but now it felt small, like the walls were closing in. The regret was loud now, louder than my pride, louder than my excuses, louder than anything I'd ever felt before. I thought I was winning, but in reality I was losing the whole time. The crazy part is, I wasn't even mad at Matt, I was mad at me, because I knew better. But knowing better doesn't mean anything if you don't do better. Now I'd have to start over. No husband, no house, no savings, just me. I always said I wanted freedom. Well, I got it now, and it feels like a prison.